Welcome, everyone. My name is Annie Beall, and I'm sharing about mountain resiliency facilitation and building and belonging. Here I'll talk about my interest in community control of land and housing, building emissions, energy burden, and energy justice, and how I apply these concepts to my two areas of practice. One, the Whetstone Resiliency Report, a report for Gunnison County to analyze the climate and equity impacts of building housing on 13 acres in the North Valley as it relates to people's locations to work. The second area of practice that I have been focusing on is a beginning of a survey that studies housing stability in mobile home communities with the Gunnison Valley Regional Housing Authority and the Hispanic Affairs Project. This will continue for the next 2 years. I'll finish up with exploring possibilities and momentum in the Gunnison Valley, and we will finish up with a conversation. 5 years ago, I was at a housing conference in Beall and watched representatives from the Globeville-Elaria-Swansea Coalition present on their formation of the GES Community Land Trust. Their neighborhood is located in Denver next to the Purina Puppy Chow plant, and they were experiencing intense gentrification, industry expansion, and living in a food desert. This is also a historic neighborhood, a place where the Latino community has made home for decades. Their land trust just established their first homeowner in the last year as the pandemic set in. I love to share about this example because this resident, Rico, expresses the community and agency collaboration needed that created permanently affordable community-owned land and housing. And I think that these components are very much available in the Gunnison community to address similar issues. While I didn't explicitly focus on forming a land trust, I use its principles to practice how land ownership allows for communities to make resiliency decisions. In Gunnison Valley, buildings account for 61% of our total CO2 equivalent emissions. Residential buildings account for 35% of emissions. Commercial buildings account for 6% of those emissions. And nationwide, residential energy use accounts for about 20% of emissions. This brings Gunnison Valley's residential building emissions to be 15% higher than the national average. As many of you know, Gunnison is a cold climate, similar to Anchorage, Alaska. And people who are living in mobile homes that do not have sufficient insulation are experiencing an energy burden, and it is creating an energy justice issue. According to the Department of Energy data, that our lowest income residents spend the most relative to their income on utility and heating bills. Here is our map of the context we are working in. In the North Valley is Crested Butte, and the South Valley is Gunnison, and starred in yellow is the potential development of the Whetstone property. And you can see that there's a lot of distance that people must travel to get from home in a lot of times the South Valley up to work in the North Valley. And locally, surface transportation accounts for 29% of our emissions, bringing our top two emission sectors, building and transportation, to account for 91% of our total emissions. With more affordable housing in the South Valley and jobs in the North Valley, people are commuting 56 miles round trip, about 261 working days per year. A great amount of our community members are divided by home and work. In my research, I asked Marketa Zubkova of the Hispanic Affairs Project if our most energy burdened neighbors, those living in mobile home communities and working in the North Valley, would like to live in the North Valley. Her general impression was that no, people want to live where there is access to goods and services, schools, neighborhood networks, which include walking and biking to meet those after work needs. This really aligned me with the Colorado Resiliency Framework. How do we make a community to be more resilient? Updated in 2021 by the Department of Local Affairs, the Resiliency Framework offers tools for Colorado communities to address concepts like this. I really aligned with this framework and utilized it in my research and analysis on the climate impacts and equity issues related to the location of housing. I applied this to my 2 areas of practice. And the resiliency framework works well for the Whetstone 13 acres in the North Valley and the context of the Gunnison work-live divide. To couple that is the planning framework of compact development. This really gets at designing a community versus units of housing. It is also a climate-ready design, as our rural communities can mimic micro-cities and become more self-reliant and sustaining. The 5 Ds of compact development include design, destination, diversity, distance to transit, and density. This design for mixed use is to meet family, personal, work, and social needs of community members and considers destination services for other North Valley residents. These 5 components are found to reduce vehicle miles traveled by 20 to 40% compared to conventional development. And by investing in transportation, it's possible to reduce emissions by up to 19%. Additionally, buildings can be built beyond electric design, eliminating natural gas and using energy efficiencies to reduce demand on renewable energy. Connected communities can also provide more energy than they consume and contribute back to the grid. Whetstone can potentially house people that would like to live and work in the North Valley, and the county now holds really good climate case to do so. And people who are experiencing energy burden and may prefer to stay living in the South Valley bring our attention back to mobile home communities. How can these communities too become resilient, self-stable, and then future forward places that support social equity and meet unique community needs while providing spaces for economic vibrancy and diversity? Last summer, in the summer of 2020, 3 pieces of legislation passed, requiring the Colorado Division of Housing to institute new regulations for manufactured home parks and grant cities the authority to enact ordinances that support the safe and equitable operation of these communities. Highlighted at the bottom of this is the mobile home park opportunity to purchase. This encourages mobile home park community members to purchase their land from their landowner and transition into community ownership, similar to a land trust model. There are nonprofit organizations and banks ready to front these investments. Last summer, one local park was identified as a good fit for a resident-owned community, and because of many reasons, the landlord chose to not sell to their tenants. To me, this was a major opportunity missed. But starting in 2020, grassroots organizing is occurring again to support mobile home communities and ready for the opportunity to purchase if it arises again. Health researchers, local agencies, and community members will develop and conduct a survey to better understand their unique community needs regarding housing security, safety, and affordability. They'll be able to then share these findings with local jurisdictions to help address gaps between the new state legislation, local jurisdiction, and resident experience. From my perspective, this 2-year-long process will help build civic capacity, understand community needs, build relationships with mobile home park residents and advocates, and ready mobile home parks for another resident-owned community opportunity. Both the future stock of Whetstone and the old stock scenarios of the mobile home communities reflect how land ownership status is a pivotal position to making resiliency decisions. Pictured here, Basalt Vista, an affordable workforce housing development in Basalt, was built in collaboration with the local utility, Holy Cross Energy, the Roaring Fork School District, Pitkin County, Habitat for Humanity, and many other material suppliers providing state-of-the-art energy efficiency systems. To me, this highlights the public-private partnerships necessary to make a project work for the community. This is also an opportunity for building in energy justice with housing justice and place-based justice. There's momentum available in Gunnison Valley, and by using the Colorado Resiliency frameworks, we can design in climate readiness with economic vibrancy, serve important community needs while significantly reducing our CO2 emissions. At the intersections of building and belonging, we can design a place to better support mountain community members. Thank you.